Welcome back, everyone, to this hour, 24 Hours of Rare. In this hour, we are very privileged to have Jack's Corner presenting to us and to hear about their nonprofit and what is going on with them for 2022 and 2023. So they have graciously sent us a video to play. And so this is Jack's Corner during our 8th hour of 24 Hours of Rare.
Hi, I'm Mike Dwyer, co-founder of Jack's Corner Foundation, a foundation to support the ultra-rare disease SPG50. Today, I'd like to begin with a short video that started it all for us.
Can you smile? Yay! I don't remember a time when I didn't want to be a mom.
I just always loved kids, and I loved babies.
You know, he was 5 or 6 months old, and I was like, I don't think he's meeting milestones like he should. And, you know, I did my due diligence, and I brought it up to the pediatrician, and you are a first-time mom, and you are worrying about nothing, and kids develop on their own time, and he's a late bloomer, was used a lot, and he'll be fine. He's going to do everything on his own. It's fine. I was nervous for the call, but just because you don't know what they're going to say. And he said the words, and I said, okay, and I wrote them down, because I didn't know what they meant yet. And then he said, it's degenerative, physically and mentally, and everything stopped. I listened, and I wrote things down because I knew I should. But it's like my world's crumbling around me. How can I even write? And this is my baby. How could this be happening to my baby? It just didn't compute. It didn't make sense. I saw these doctors all along and said, it's not degenerative. And I believed them, and they believed that. And more than the call, I remember after the call, closing the screen on the computer of the Zoom and breaking. I couldn't catch my breath. I couldn't stop crying. Jack was sleeping upstairs, and I just couldn't imagine how this could have happened to my baby.
It was really hard to understand what they were saying in the phone call and really comprehend what they were saying, because they were essentially saying that he was going to end up in a wheelchair, and from there lose even potentially his ability to use his hands and arms, and then after that start a neurological decline that would, take away a lot of his ability to think, and certainly he'd never be independent. The things that you thought mattered don't. They just don't anymore. You just want to love them and have them live as healthy and wonderful and normal a life as he can.
And that idea of him catching up had played such a big part in our life. Even up to that point when we knew it was going to take longer. That catch-up phrase was everywhere, and it was a big deal for me. I just wanted him to catch up and be okay. And when we got the diagnosis, and more when we started to really understand what it meant, I just wanted him to be able to use his arms. I wanted him to be able to hug. And he grabs your hand, and he grabs his cousin's hands all the time, and he hugs them, and I want him to be able to use his arms. And he's so bright, and he loves to read, and I want him to be able to use his mind. And that phrase of catch up just evaporated. It means absolutely nothing compared to what really matters. and we just so desperately want him to have the life that he deserves. NIH told us he has hereditary spastic paraplegia, type SPG50. Here's what it does, and there is no cure. There is no cure. But, and that but was this sliver of hope, and it was everything. Just everything is everything that we have held on to and has propelled us forward.
The more you learn, the more you realize that at the time there were 70 kids like Jack in the world that had been diagnosed with this type of SPG 50, and there's just no funding for a disease that if you cure it, you only help 70 people, and I would have completely understood that
Till your child is one of them.
3 years ago. But now you think, my God, it's 70 people. If you look at other gene therapies, and the hope for this gene therapy is that it will, at a minimum, stop the progression of the disease. And it even could reverse the disease, which would be fantastic, but frankly, I don't care. I just want to stop for my little boy. That was published on October 17th, 2022, and it was the beginning of Jack's Corner. I'd like to thank the organizers of 24 Hours of Rare for giving us the opportunity to highlight SPG 50 here today. I'm going to start with a little bit about what SPG 50 is, touch on the exciting gene therapy trial, and close with the issues we face within the community. SPG 50 is hereditary spastic paraplegia subtype 50. It's inherited in an autosomal recessive manner, meaning both parents must pass down the disease-causing mutation to result in any symptoms. The first thing to know about the disease is that it lives within a family of 4 diseases: SPG 47, 50, 51, and 52. Collectively, these are known as AP4 deficiency syndrome. While each of the diseases are caused by mutations of different genes, SPG 50 is AP4M1, they all result in a failure of the AP4 adaptor complex, meaning they all have similar symptoms. Dr. Darius Ibrahimi Fakhari at Boston Children's Hospital, or Dr. Darius, as families of this disease fondly know him as, has done incredible work on the disease and currently has an ongoing natural history study from which we've learned most of what we know on the AP4 family of diseases. From this study, we know patients afflicted with any of the AP4 genetic disorders generally begin by presenting with symptoms similar to cerebral palsy. These include global developmental delay, microcephaly, or small head size, seizures, malformation of the brain, and hypotonia or low muscle tone. As the disease progresses, the few patients that do learn to walk independently tend to lose that ability a few months or a few years later as they develop hypertonia, high muscle tone, and muscle spasticity. The spasticity starts in the ankles and lower extremities before progressing to the upper extremities, resulting in a loss in mobility in some or all of those. In addition to the physical toll the disease takes, it takes a mental toll as well. Children with SPG 50 are intellectually challenged, with some never learning to talk and some losing that ability over time. Although the disease severity ranges from child to child, most children fall into the severely affected category, meaning severe spasticity resulting in paralysis and severe cognitive impairment. Even children like our son Jack, who are in the less severe category, not necessarily having seizures, the ability to talk in short sentences, walking with an abnormal gait, even these children will eventually experience decline, ultimately losing the ability to walk and becoming quadriplegic between the ages of 10 and As you saw in the initial video, there's now a clinical trial that in August of 2022 was approved by the FDA for an experimental gene therapy treatment named Milpida for SPG50. The gene therapy treatment was spearheaded by Terry Krivovalakis and Cure SPG50, the foundation he started to help cure his son Michael and keeps working on to help cure all children with SPG50. Almost exactly 3 years prior to Jack's diagnosis, Terry and his wife Georgia received the same diagnosis as Jack, but they were not willing to accept that there was nothing they could do to stop it. Thanks to the efforts of Terry and Cure SPG50, gene therapy was developed to help all children with SPG50. Michael was dosed with Milpida in March of 2022, and the early indications are the treatment was successful. The current trial approved by the FDA is for 2 children, the first of which will be dosed in early 2023, the second dose a few months later. The gene therapy treatment will, in theory, stop the progression of the disease in children with SPG50 and is the only treatment available to attempt to stop or reverse the disease. All other treatments currently available to children with SPG50 simply treat symptoms, but don't stop the progression. The primary treatments for the disease are physical, speech, and occupational therapy. To give you an idea, in a typical week, our son Jack has 12 different therapy appointments. Outside of therapy, baclofen and localized Botox injections are used in some children to help release some of the spasticity caused by the disease. Other than a lack of treatments, there are several other difficulties facing the SPG50 and AP4 communities as a whole. Due to the current patient population of less than 100 children worldwide with SPG50, research into the disease and therefore the understanding of it is limited. Dr. Darius at Boston Children's has done amazing work and is the reason we know so much of what we do today. But the rarity of disease is also believed to lead to underdiagnosis, as there are many similarities to cerebral palsy, as I touched on earlier. The average SPG50 patient is diagnosed at 9 years old. At 9 years, a significant proportion of the disease has progressed already, and some of the benefit of the gene therapy is already gone. As with many other rare diseases, quicker whole exome sequencing or whole genome sequencing when an issue is identified with a child would significantly improve the diagnosis. While we are huge proponents of the sequencing upon first indication of an issue with any child. Also, due to the small population of patients, the gene therapy treatment isn't considered commercially viable. It means that the clinical trial must be paid for by privately raised funds, with families and foundations raising the money for each treatment. The cost for just one child to receive the treatment and the ensuing 5 years of clinical trial care and the medicine is over $400,000. That doesn't even include manufacturing the drug or the millions that were spent on developing the drug. Those challenges that children with SPG50 face are why we started Jack's Corner. At Jack's Corner, we have 3 primary missions: to raise awareness, to support research, and to raise funding for the clinical gene trial, with the vision that no parent or child affected by the disease ever feels hopeless again. My wife, Devin, and I are naturally introverted, so it wasn't easy to make the decision to start the foundation and share the story. Prior to that, we'd been very private. If there are any families watching that are facing the same decision and questioning it, I can without a doubt tell you it was the right decision. We've been absolutely overwhelmed by the support we've received since going public with the charity. Blown away that at the end of 2022, we're excited to say we were able to raise over $600,000 that will be used towards helping kids with SPG50 live better lives. Frankly, the lives they deserve. But even with the amazing amount of funds we've raised, it's not nearly enough. We're so fortunate that Cure SPG50 put in the incredible work to develop the gene therapy and continues to put in work raising funds, but there's just not enough funding to treat every child. For more information about SPG50 or Jack's Corner Foundation, check us out on social media platforms at Jack's Corner Foundation or on our website, www.jackscorner.org. Other phenomenal resources are Cure SPG 50, Cure AP4, both outstanding foundations. The work being done at Boston Children's Hospital on understanding the disease and mapping the biomarkers, and the work Cure SPG 50 and UT Southwestern have done on the gene therapy treatment is nothing short of extraordinary. They all happen to be some of the kindest people you've ever met, too. In closing, I just want to say thank you. Thank you to the rare community as a whole for embracing us. When your child is diagnosed with an ultra rare disease, you feel devastated. You feel fear, and acute loneliness that you didn't know was possible. Unlike well-known and more common diseases with books you could go read or a roadmap of what you're going to go through, even friends knowing how you're feeling, you're completely thrown into the deep end with no one around. Terry Piravalakis of Cure SPG 50 reached out to us the day our son was diagnosed, and it was everything. Suddenly, there was someone with us who understood what we were going through, and there was hope we could get through this. When we started to share our story, the rare community as a whole welcomed us. We are now connected to people around the world, and while those connections might not be specific to SPG 50, they remind us that we aren't the only people facing what we're facing today. It amazes me to see how this community can band together and root for each other as we all work towards individual progress in our own diseases. It's been an eye-opening experience to see having a rare disease isn't that rare after all. That's it for us today. I want to thank again the organizers for allowing us to speak about SPG 50.
I want to thank Mike and his wife for contributing to this amazing story about from Jack's Corner and the work and the progress that goes on there, and to let you know that Mike, you and your family are not alone in this battle that the rare disease community fights and bands together on. So thank you for contributing to 24 Hours of Rare, and we will definitely be sure to follow you and promote. Coming up at the top of the next hour, we're going to be hearing from CFRI, cystic fibrosis research that is out in California. And we've been a longtime partner with them and hear about what's going on in the cystic fibrosis community. So tune in at the top of the hour and to hear more about cystic fibrosis.